What's up, guys? How's it going? Nice for all of you guys to see me once again. We are back and talking about components of language and its association to sociology and cultures. Fair warning, my window is open today, so you may hear cars driving by and all that good stuff, but we're going to fight our way through it. This is what, week three of online learning. Hopefully, we're getting the hang of it. It's always super nice of you guys to stop in and see me on Thursdays. This week, we're going with components of language, and we're going to give you a day to review on Wednesday, basically. So there's going to be less work this week. But our first quiz on Thursday, due Thursday. So I probably won't open the quiz for you to see until Wednesday. Just because I want you guys to take some time to review the lectures, study, look at the notes, whatever it may be, because it's our first quiz. So I don't want you guys to rush into it or anything like that, and I want you to have your best opportunity. So, components of a language. Let's get after it. Here we go. Oh, that was very anticlimactic. Oh, I know what I did. Hold on. I can do this. There we go. So types of language. This is all important stuff. This will be important on the quiz, very possibly. Four types of language that you need to know. Obviously, there's two that I think are much more obvious to us in the United States and among modernized Western cultures, which is what you guys think of when we think of anything cultural. The majority, if not all of you guys, are thinking about Western civilization because that's what you live in, that's what you participate in. So number one is verbal, and as you know, verbal language in our country is apparent almost everywhere. You see it obviously in the classroom when I'm speaking, listening to your friends speak. Music is a type of verbal language communication. Anything you watch on television, YouTube, whatever, they're communicating to you verbally, and on the same level that you understand what language is, right? So it's spoken communication, and there is a formal and informal structure, right? The conversation that you have with your grandmother or some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Like just someone, an elder, right? Someone older than you. Is different than the slang that you use with your friends, right? They don't know what half of the slang or terminology you use means, right? It's very different, and we see this in subcultures all across the United States. I think music is a very good example, whereas there are people in music in different genres where the structure of how they communicate, right, the patterns in which they sing or rap or play an instrument is very different, and those are all spoken communication that we can understand, right? And so that's very important. Verbal communication, the maybe the right currently the most prominent form of communication, because most of our information is now spread through social media and like recorded speeches. So if the president gives a speech, that's what people are looking to watch, right? If somebody puts anything social, a video like I am right now, choosing to use verbal communication, whereas I could, write a 5-page, report on types of languages and have you read it online, right? So over the course of our culture, that has changed because written language used to be that median where we have a formalized system of symbols representing sounds, right? And that's how we learn to read phonetically in the United States. In this picture with this cute little boy over here in the red bow tie, these are different ways of saying, I believe, hello. In all these different languages, you can see Guten Tag here, German, hello, English, ciao, French probably. This looks Arabic to me. Bonjour, mahalo. So all of these different ways to say hello, and written in different ways with different accents, and you may not know what most of those are, but somebody from somewhere around the world who speaks that or understands that language the way it's written, it will be as clear to them as the word hello is to you. right? And so that's super important as well to understand the differentiation in language, written and verbal, among the world. Kinesics is nonverbal. So this could be something like sign language. Typically, it's more recognizable gestures, facial expressions, and even eye contact. So this is kind of the unspoken body language, right? Is eye contact accepted in that country? Is it seen as offensive? Shaking hands, bowing down, kissing on the cheek. There's all these different examples in different countries. What is seen as accepted? What is seen as rude? What hand symbol is angry or offensive? Whereas in some country it could be nothing. So kinesics, body language, right? Body language, another type of language. And paralanguage. Paralanguage is things that accompany language. They're not necessarily their own type of language, but you have slurs, right? So things that can be very offensive in one language, but not offensive in another language, or have changed over time, like slurs that in even America, where they used to not be seen as offensive, but now are seen as extremely offensive. And you have to be careful when you're speaking country to country of using a slur that to them may be very, very offensive or normal to them, and understanding those differences in language. And it also is things that accompany, such as tone of voice, is yelling, angry, is being louder, right? And I think in the United States, being louder with your voice, right? More direct with your tone. Usually signifies anger or importance, maybe not importance, but um, urgency, how urgent something is. Um, and also non-meaningful utterances like shh. Those are all paralanguage, things that kind of substitute or help propel the understanding of language, and change the meaning in a lot of cases. All right, so four types of languages. You need to know those four: verbal, written, kinesics. Sorry, that word's hard to say. It doesn't look right on paper, right? Kinesics and paralanguage. Know those four. So, studying linguistics is a very interesting concept for sociological purposes because of the so many different types of forms that there are and the change that happens so quickly. So, glottochronology is the study of tracing changes of language over time. Um, and the only way they can do that is by basically telling themselves, we will never understand all written language. It's just not possible. Because the assumption is that 14% of language, so that's all language around the world, not just English, right? Because, uh, you know, Indo European English is where our English originated from thousands and thousands of years ago, has been dispersed and differentiated. And you'll see I have a scale in here later, yeah, not a scale, it's not a scale, but an image of how it's dispersed over the past thousands of years to become so many different languages, right? So if they start tracing that back, they're never going to find what every word that we see written on a wall or scribbled in a cave or, you know, written in a stone is going to mean, because they believe 14% of all language changes every 1,000 years. And is that, oh, hold on. There's some guy who like rides his dirt bike around my neighborhood and it's just so loud. And it's like, come on, dude, please, you know, come on. But anyway, so they believe that so much language changes. And 14% is a lot. And when you think about the American language, how often do we add a new slang word to the dictionary or to our normal speak? Pretty often, right? All it takes is one musician to come up with a song or a dance table name labeled something, and next thing you know, it's a hashtag on Twitter. So, um, one of the ones I like to use is the word literally, right? The word literally used to mean something was actually happening, right? Something was occurring. It was literally happening, right? Like, dude, I broke my ankle. I literally broke my ankle. Your ankle would be broken in a cast. Went to the doctor. Over the past maybe decade, we've started using literally for things sarcastically, right? Things that didn't literally happen. And I'd be like, dude, I literally ate like 50 burgers, right? And in reality, I ate three and I was just really full. Or I literally broke my ankle when I just twisted it and it hurts a little bit, right? So they have literally changed the definition of literally to mean not literally in some dictionaries. That's crazy. But that is glottochronology, the change of language, right? So if they were tracing that change, they would have to start at about a decade ago when we started using it in a sarcastic manner to understand the changes in sociology that led to the change in culture that led to the change of language. And so they do that a lot by comparing languages to other languages that exist or that have the same base language, right? Such as Latin. Latin is one of the original languages that was then dispersed into like five different languages like Spanish, Italian, it's not German. I don't even remember all five of them, but and those became very different languages, right? But they all came from the basic language. And this happens, like you can see here, with the Rosetta Stone. The ancient Egyptian not understood till Rosetta Stone discovered different languages that were relatively the same, that had the same some similarities, and we were able to cross reference them and piece it together and learn new languages. Right. So the study of language, very important. What is language like across the world? There is over 3,000 different languages currently being spoken in the world. Um, and I think a lot of that is, especially American assumptions, is that it's American, right? English. And part of that is because so much is run through the United States currently that it's just kind of the base understanding. Like if you're talking about the big one is the metric system versus the American system of feet and inches versus meters and centimeters. Um, we still use that here. Even though the rest of the world uses something else. When you're flying planes and you're going to land them, it doesn't matter if the plane is coming from China. The air traffic controller will use English directions because it is such our country's so influential. However, English is barely in the top five. We're actually fourth in the native speakers, the number of people who speak the English language. Um, so there's over 3,000 languages. However, more than 50% of the world speaks the top 12. All right. So many people speak of these top 12. And there are languages that have, at the bottom of this 3,000 list that have literally hundreds of speakers, less than hundreds of speakers. English is the most widespread. So people speak English more, ar- more around the world, but not the most in the world. So that's important. Mandarin, believe it or not, is number one, Hindi number two, Spanish number three, then English. And as you can see, this chart is in millions. How many people comparatively speak Mandarin? It's double the next one. So millions and millions and millions of people around the world speak Mandarin. Linguistic development, this is kind of important. What is proto-language? In that, again, is this evolution of languages from a common base language. And this sometimes is misleading, whereas you think it has the same base language. So a person who speaks German can understand English, but that's not necessarily true, even though they become from the same language family, right? And this is kind of like I said, with Latin, right? There's the five love languages of Latin. I'll try to one more time. Italian. I know Italian. I know French, Spanish, Portuguese. I'm not going to remember the other one, but someone who speaks Portuguese is not going to necessarily understand someone who speaks French, even though they come from the same language family. However, someone who speaks Portuguese may understand Spanish because they come from the same language family. So, they are not equivalent, they're not equal, not transverse, I guess, for a math term, but it can be transverse. So it's very interesting language family. What does that mean? But again, English speakers cannot easily understand German, even though we're from the same. I think it's called Indo something. It's on the next slide, um, and we both come from the same base language. Cognates are words across different languages that belong to the same origin. Etymological origins. Czar, Kaiser, Caesar, they're all the same. They all mean the same thing. Um, and that is etymology, is the study of word origins. So where does that word originate from? Where does it change? What does the difference mean in different languages? Because Tsar, Kaiser, and Caesar were all leaders, right? All political people of major importance in those different countries. All right. So here it is: Proto-Indo-European language. Thousands of years ago, that was believed to be the language, right? And then as people started to move across the world, they took their singular language, spread across the world, and developed their own dialects of that language, coming up with their own slang terms, their own terms for things that didn't exist currently, right? Like when the English came over to America from England, right? They came over to the New Americas, landed on the East Coast, and they started to see beavers, right? And tobacco and Indians and different lakes and rivers and animals and bears and what are those? They had to come up with names. And so when they did that, they broke down into the Germanic tribes, Balto-Slavic, the more Latin area, Celtic, Classic Greek, Old Persian, and those all came from different things, right? Indo-Iranian. Those split up, and we had Sanskrit, which Sanskrit is one of the hardest to understand languages in the world still. It's one of the few ancient languages that we don't know. We really are having trouble deciphering it, right? And then it broke down Old Persian, and Old Persian broke down into Persian and Kurdish, and like Sanskrit broke down into Hindi, Bengali, and Punjabi. And then, we have these things over here: Latin, Romanian. Oh, darn it. I was so close. Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian. I never would have remembered Romanian. That does not sound like a love language to me, like sexy Romanian. They're not the same. But whatever. And Germanic tribes broke down from Proto-Indo-European into English, which obviously breaks down into, American English versus England English. Dutch, German, Icelandic, Danish, Norwegian, Swedish all come from the same Germanic language, and Gothic, which actually went extinct as a language, it's still studied, but it's not the same. So a lot of languages broke down, and there's more than just one base like Proto-Indo-European, right? If you're talking about Asian or something like that as well, you would be talking about a different language family. So here's kind of how it broke down, and as you see from the last one, people started, say, in Mesopotamia around there, and people started to move, and the diffusion of language happens, right? And eventually it diffuses all the way down to Christopher Columbus coming to the United States, and then, us settling Jamestown and diffusing the language even more to get current American language. Here's some language. Like I said, here's Indo-European is this color green. You can see that those countries came from Indo-European descent, right? So America with English, all of these countries, Spain, the Latin languages. You have Sino-Tibetan taking up all of northern Africa, basically. Niger, Congo down here in middle of Africa, and all of these different places here influencing different countries and different dialects and understanding of culture, because sometimes cultures can't if they can't explain something, right? Like look at Indo-Pacific right here. The only place on this map is right here in some of these Indo-Pacific islands over here, and their understanding of language is going to be different than any of these other languages. And the words that they even have a possibility to describe is limited to their culture. That's crazy to think about, right? Language families. Last thing we're going to talk about here, nice short little notes here, before you guys start to get ready for your test and study up, is a language and cultural identity. And how does language, like I was just talking about, language leads to cultural cohesion, right? If every person in the country didn't speak the same language or understand things, then we wouldn't have unifying things. Like, say, for instance, in the United States, it's watching some television show that millions of people tune into, whether that is like some sort of reality TV like The Bachelor, or like America's Got Talent, or Friends when it aired episodes weekly, right? People could watch that same show and get the same result because we had the same understanding of words. And this breaks down even more, um, with accents and dialects and understanding, and even, in my opinion, generationally, things are getting a greater divide, right? If you watch a TikTok, you could laugh your head off because it's so funny. Your parents will watch it and not understand a single word that was said, right? So that's the big difference between language and cultural identity and subcultures. Linguistic similarities lead to formation of identity, right? French people speak French, Texans have a Texan accent, and you will try to, some people will, that can either be unifying, or like all things in sociology, it can be unifying or it can be divide people, right? If you don't like the French, if you don't like Texas, and you hear that Texas or French accent, you may either feel connected to that person if you're a Texan, right? Or you could dislike Texans and you instantly don't like that person. So it can be dividing people or unifying people. And sometimes in some parts of the world, acceptance into a culture depends on language acquisition. Can you can, like, for instance, French do not accept French Canadians, right? Because they are super similar, but they're not the same. And so, do they, again? Is it create a divide or an acceptance of people? All right. So pretty simple note stuff here, guys. A language. I don't want to spend 45 minutes talking about language because I think you guys understand it. But I do think it was really cool to look at the language families and the diffusion of language over the world, right? And just kind of like this list, how many people speak each language around the world. Super interesting stuff there. I hope you guys enjoyed the video of Let It Go or Give Up. I thought it was really funny when I saw it, and just the interpretation, right, of words and things. Um, so this week, like I said, I'm not going to put the quiz on there till probably Wednesday because I want you guys to watch this hopefully on Monday or Tuesday. Study up Wednesday and take the quiz Thursday. We'll meet in our Moodle class or our Zoom class on Thursday, see how it went, and then, hey, we're on to week 4. I miss you guys still. I'm here for you if you need anything. Please keep turning your work in. Please keep being great students. Seniors, I wish I could see you guys one more time. Hopefully, we can, work something out and get a graduation for you guys or whatever. But I'm here for you. I know you're here for me. Have a great day, guys. Peace out.